Anita here, and welcome to day 7 of the Inktober challenge. For some reason I keep wanting to say the 30-day challenge. I really don't know why, it just keeps lately popping in my head. But welcome to another video. Today I am working on a winter witch, I suppose. I really wanted to experiment more with that feathered background effect I've done yesterday, where I've used it yesterday to indicate a light source and a shine. And today I've decided to choose this picture specifically because there's a lot of fur happening around the trim of the coat and around the hood, and there's this little pom-pom on her witch's hat. I think also this is the first witch so far that doesn't have the traditional hat. I made sure that every single picture that I made has a hat on it, but I also wanted to give it a little bit of a twist here and there whenever it was possible. And so this time she has a hood on with the little pointy end. And so I'm working on the line art at the moment. There isn't actually, it's a very simple figure. There's not much detail going on. The biggest two, I would call it issues or focal points. I like to think of them as issues because for me they are just problems, okay, on my road to success. But the focal points is the trim, the furry trim, and the crystal that she's sitting on. And these are the 2 points that I was very nervous about. I wanted to have, because yesterday was not my best day, but today I felt much better. I feel much better still. And so I wanted to just have a little bit of, more of a challenge, and just to challenge myself, push myself a little bit further. So surprisingly enough, this picture is really easy, but it has 2 elements that I am not so happy about painting, and I don't know how to approach. One is that fur trim, which of course I've done a similar effect yesterday, but I wasn't sure if I could handle it in the same way here, because it's a little bit different. And then also the crystal, which I love drawing crystals, I really do. However, I've never really paid attention to the tone, to the values inside crystals. I was more concerned about making them shine and sparkle, and I wasn't really thinking of how how the contrast was, how the tonal value, my goodness, you know what I mean. Basically, it will be a challenge for me to have a crystal in only one color. And to be honest, the crystal was probably the biggest issue of that whole painting. We'll get to that at some point. So I've done the basic outlines of everything, and now I'm coming back again. Right, first I'm trying to figure out the background, the little frame that goes around. And I wanted to show you how I draw it, because I've never done that. I usually draw it off camera. So I'm basically making marks around the character to make it balanced on the paper. And as you can see, this character came out a little bit unbalanced. She's a little bit towards the left side of the paper rather than the middle. It doesn't bother me because, that's just something that you have to be prepared for. And I've decided that I would balance it with white details. There's supposed to be snow in the background. So we're working on the black background again. It's the first thing I'm starting to work with, because for me it was the biggest part of the painting, because there isn't much clothes, there isn't much detail to her. The biggest here is the fur trim. And so I've done it similarly to what I've done yesterday. I started first defining the fur and trying to blend it into the background a little bit more, so that I had something to work with. Because normally, as you can see at the moment, still on the hat, there are just very thin lines, and I'm just thickening them. I'm just making more of those fur strokes. And the reason for that is that I've decided to come with the black and just bring it really close to the fur, and then try to blend it with the pen. Yesterday I tried doing it with the brush, and it worked fine, but it was a little bit too time consuming for my taste. I thought I could do it faster and easier with just a fine liner, one of the thicker ones. So as you can see here, I'm just coming really, really close to the outline. I'm kind of feathering it, of course, but not as delicately and gently as I did yesterday. And the idea is so that I can have that little bit of a wiggle room to blend with the fine liner. I need a sip of my drink. I'm becoming more comfortable with you guys because before it was just unthinkable for me to drink while I'm doing a voiceover. It's just, you don't do that. You drink before and you drink after. And in the meantime, you suffer. But I'm just done with that. We have to do a lot of videos. And so I thought, you know, my drink was in order. I mean, if Graveyard Girl can do it, so can I, right? Right, I suppose. Oh, big announcement. I've made my decision regarding the video on Sunday, and I've decided to skip it. There will be another video on Monday. Purely, I just need a break. There will still be picture. Of course, I will be still painting. So if you would like to see what I'm painting on Sunday, you can either check it on my Facebook or on my Instagram. Both links are in the description. And I think I'm going to try and make some shots of the process so that, you know, you can see how it was created. But I've decided to just take a break from the videos. It's not exactly what I planned, but I am really tired and I really feel like I need that break. I hope you guys are okay with that. There will be, of course, a video on Monday, so don't worry about that. So I'm still working on the background. Yeah, the background took a very long time. I think it's out of... Usually I have those time... let's suppose time... Let's call it... how do I call it? Just time... I'm missing a word. It's because I took a drink and I feel more, you know, relaxed. I have times for certain things. So I will do a background. It will take me a certain amount of time usually. And then according to that... I always know how much time things will take if I do a certain part. So background took me forever because of all what I'm doing right now. You can see I'm trying to blend in that black just to bring it closer to that, you know, to the fluff. And that took really, really long time. Of course, I didn't paint that long. I mean, the whole illustration took about 2 hours. But it's really... This part here took over an hour, including lining and excluding sketching because I sketched before a camera. So it took me over an hour to just do the background, and I wrecked my wrist with it. I was just gripping so hard trying to make perfect strokes, but all in all, I'm really happy with the effect. I've never done fur like this. If you look at my illustrations, I usually do fur very... I will come back on a darker background, I will make white strokes, and that will be the fur for me. I always do it because I love drawing with white on a darker background. That's just something I just love. I love doing it. I love the effect. So for me, it's really actually challenging to do it this way, where I don't use white on... well, I'm just keeping the white instead of bringing it back, I suppose. And sometimes it's necessary. Like someone in the comments, I'm sorry I don't remember what your name was, but they suggested I should use a masking pen for keeping the details white that I want to be white. And I think that's a very good idea, but I couldn't find my paintbrush. I mean the masking pen. It's somewhere. But I haven't used it for so long that I really don't know where it is anymore. It happens. But if you've noticed, if you've been watching those videos, you probably noticed, because I've noticed it, that I'm not using so much white anymore on the character. I will use the white for a special effect, like in the background. The shinies, I always use it for the shinies, but not on the character itself. And it really surprises me because... I always did that. I always tried using white gel pen or white gouache to bring the white detail. And that's something I love doing, but here I'm not. It's very interesting to me. So here I'm doing my first layer of the crystal. I still wasn't sure exactly what I was trying to do, so I just did the first layer of what I normally would do. So each facet, is that how you call it? It's each of the sides. I just filled it in with some very thinned out ink. So very, very light gray. And then I would just drop a little bit of the darker one so that it created little gradient effect. And I would repeat that actually a few times just to get the intensity going, but it still didn't look as the crystal I wanted. And I pretty much left it. Oh, my nose is a bit... I'm sorry for sniffling. So I left it pretty much till the very end because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with it. And that's my usual tactic when I paint. If I don't know how to approach something, I will leave it till the very end. And the reason for that is actually quite simple, and, you know, I'm just trying to save time. Because by doing the most important thing is to keep painting. It doesn't matter what you're painting, just keep painting. And so whenever I have a problem, instead of dwelling on that problem, thinking how I'm going to figure it out, I just move on. I do, in this case, her boots, her pants, her hair, shading, you know, all the other things. And usually in that time, part of my brain is working on a solution to the crystal problem in this case. So I'm trying to figure out, oh, should I maybe add some lines with a fine liner? Because I was missing that contrast. You know, when you paint crystals, it's all about a very high contrast. That's how you get that shiny effect. If you have a lot of light and a lot of shiny, you need to have a lot of black. Or just contrasting color. And when I work in color, I don't mind it that much. There is not that much contrast because for me, the color makes up for it. In this case, it was necessary because I don't have the color. But I was afraid. I was really afraid to do it. It was very intimidating because that's something that I haven't even done in watercolor before. So I really didn't know how to exactly approach it. And so, as I've mentioned, while I was filling in the other areas, my brain was just working on a solution. And also, the more you paint, the more surrounding appears. Sometimes it becomes really obvious what you have to do to bring that crystal, in this case, to life, to make it match everything else. And this was the case here as well. But in the meantime, I'm pretty much doing everything else. So I've decided to have a little bit of just a fur texture. It's supposed to be white fur, so I didn't want to go overboard. So there's just very gentle ink strokes of very, very thinned out ink. And you can see me doing them now. And I wasn't really being very, careful. I just wanted to have a little bit of texture over there, just to indicate that fur. Normally, I would probably like to add a little bit more of the ink, of the fine liner in black ink. But I liked the way it looked. And honestly, I was afraid that if I added it, I would have overdone it. It wouldn't be so white and shiny anymore. And I really wanted this to be white, a white fur trim. But it... excuse me. But I need a sip. I'm still having a bit of a... Well, I'm not having cold anymore, but every time I have a cold and a bit of a sore throat, my throat, actually, even if it doesn't hurt, it just kind of like suffers for a few days. So that's why I'm kind of sniffling and I need my water nearby. So here I'm doing another... what I was mentioning, the fur didn't look wasn't standing out enough, in my opinion. And so I've decided, you know, the coat was also supposed to be white. So I had to add a little bit of shading to the coat, but the underside of the coat, I figured, okay, this can be a little bit darker. As you can see there, the background is a little bit, it has that bit of a watercolor texture, ink bloom texture. That's how I called it yesterday. And the reason also for that was I wanted to make the crystal stand out more. I thought perhaps that was my solution to the problem where, you know, the crystal wasn't sparkly enough. But no, it was still not as sparkly as I wanted it to be. So I kept working on other details. I've added just shading. And once again, I'm doing that. I'm not blending out the shading. I'm very happy with that. I think I'm going to pull it into watercolors. It's so much faster than just worrying about every single shading line to be perfectly blended out. And honestly, it looks so much better. I mean, I already knew it worked better. I mean, I do it in digital art. It's one of those things that when I do digital art, I'm much more rough than I am actually in regular watercolor. Because I want my regular watercolor to look like almost digital painting, when it's perfectly smooth and it doesn't look traditional. That's how I always liked my watercolors, until recently. And so in digital painting, I'm doing the exact opposite. I've actually am more courageous, probably, of course, because of the whole Control-Z being a big, you know, part of it. So here I'm adding a little bit texture to the coat. I wanted the coat to be a little bit furry as well, just a bit. So I'm adding some lines, just kind of hatching. I don't know, it's not cross-hatching, it's just regular hatching. I'm adding it here and there to indicate that it's fur. I also was very tempted to add little bits to her back, like little white lines with white gel pen that would stick out of her coat. But you know, my recent, every time I think that something would look good in white gel pen, that is not the case. And so I was like, you know what, it looks good like this already. I'm just going to leave it. Sometimes it's good to just leave it, you know, especially that it already looks good. So I'm adding a little bit of shading just to her face, to the hair. I'm trying to deepen the hair. I wasn't exactly sure how dark I wanted the hair to be. I didn't want it to stand out too much, but it constantly just felt a little bit too light. I don't know. I don't know if I should have made it a little even darker. Perhaps I should have. So now, you know, the big crystal dilemma. So I picked up a fine liner. I'm trying to figure out if maybe just adding an outline to it would make it pop a bit more. So I'm adding, you know, a bit more fine liner here and there, just the same way I've done it yesterday. I really like that. I think it's called hatching, that little effect. It's just adding lines, deepening some of the shadows with fine liner. And I just keep adding, and I'm constantly thinking, what am I supposed to do with that crystal? It just doesn't feel right. It's not shiny enough. So I figured, okay, first I'm going to add the white details. And you know it's a serious problem if I go to add white details first. Usually it's my very last step. But I keep adding it because in the back of my head I thought perhaps if I add some sparkle around it, because the snow is supposed to, you know, just swirl around her. Swirl. It's kind of falling. But you know what I mean. It's supposed to go over her, so I'm adding a little bit of snow over her coat. Inside, as you can see here. And I thought perhaps that would make everything pop a little bit, but actually it didn't. And then it hit me, and I took my... oh yeah, here I'm trying to add little lines first. But it hit me then that perhaps that snow needed a little bit more of a shadow as well, and I had those Pitt pens that I keep using once in a while. They're actually made of the same ink, just well, not the same one, but they actually have Indian ink in them. And I've decided, oh, you know what, I'm just actually going to add those pens, and I'm just gonna add them. I'm just gonna add them and see what happens. So I have two colors, and as you can see here, I'm doing a bit of a marker kind of a thing when I'm adding a darker color and blending it out with the lighter one, and that's when it felt good. This is when I was like, okay, now it's starting to look like something. Just adding a bit of that different contrasting color, it really made the white pop. It was beautiful. I was very, very happy, and this is, I know I keep saying it every single time, but it's good, because this is again my current favorite. I thought that yesterday was my favorite and the day before was my favorite. No, this is my current favorite, and I am so very happy with it. I'm so very happy that I can paint crystals in ink. I really, this was my biggest problem. So as I mentioned, this is the end. This is it pretty much. So as I mentioned, there will be no video tomorrow, but I will see you guys on Monday. So have an amazing Sunday. Thank you so very, very much for watching, and I will see you later. Bye!